Board of County Commissioners, agenda setting regular meeting. It is Tuesday, January 10th, 2023. It is 9:03 a.m. This session is set to go until noon. This is a hybrid meeting. We're in the atrium, 3000 Pacific, room 110. For public virtual attendance, you may follow along on the Thurston County YouTube channel. I'm Carolina Mejia. I'm the chair of the board. To my right is Vice Chair Ty Menser. To my left is Commissioner Gary Edwards. And we'll start our agenda today with our standing item, which is homeless strategies. And Keely popped up.
Good morning, Commissioners. Keely Marino with Public Health and Social Services with a brief update for you today. First of all, I would like to announce that we're having our Regional Housing Council meeting this week on Wednesday at 4 p.m. It is a shorter meeting, so it'll be 4 and 15 minutes. If the public would like to attend, they can register at Thurston County Regional Housing Council on that website. There will be a link to register for that meeting. The Regional Housing Council is also continuing to take applications for interested parties that would like to participate in either the Affordable Housing Advisory Board and or the Homeless Services Advisory Board. These boards will act as bodies that would make recommendations in regards to funding and awarding of contracts to affordable housing and homeless services projects. We are excited to bring people from our community into this process, and people with lived expertise and people with direct experiences in homeless services, and are very much encouraged to apply. That application process will be closed as of Monday, the 23rd of January, and we'll be moving swiftly forward to make recommendations for appointments to those boards in February. And lastly, I can't walk away from this update without talking about the point in time count. So the annual point in time count homeless census is occurring on the last week of January. Events are scheduled to begin on the 25th of January and will be continuing throughout that week. The actual accounting of individuals begins on the 26th, which is Thursday of that week. And many events will be occurring on Friday, subsequent to the overnight count. There will also be some events in the following week we're doing laundromat events, which is very exciting, Tuesday and Wednesday of the next week. All of which we have information on and flyers for those specific events. For those who are interested in volunteering, they can reach out to the PIT census team at co.thurston.wa.us. And commissioners and anyone within the county that would like to volunteer, you'll be more than welcome. I will be sending an email with specific dates and times later on today so that you can look at events that you might want to attend if you feel so inclined. And that is all.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
By any chance, does this point in time count have a mechanism in place so that you'll be able to tell the difference between those folks that are local folks that have fallen on bad times, or if they are recent arrivals to the Puget Sound area?
Yeah, within the survey, we will have questions such as where do you live currently, and where was your last known permanent address, and how long did you live at that address? Getting at if a person has lived in Thurston County for the last 10 years, but they happen to have fallen into homelessness 3 years ago or what have you. So yeah, there will be questions on the survey that will account for that information.
Any mechanism to verify that?
It's a voluntary survey, so we will be asking individuals if they would like to participate and then taking them at their word.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Menser, any questions? No questions from me, Keely. Thank you. Okay, so with that, we'll move on to the review of the Board of County Commissioners draft agenda for our meeting of January 10th, 2023. And so we'll go ahead and start with, we'll call the meeting to order at 2 p.m. The Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Vice Chair Menser. There's the approval of the Tuesday, January 10th, 2023 agenda. We have two presentations scheduled for today. The first one is Certificate of Appreciation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For your consideration is to present a certificate of appreciation to Mr. Neil McClanahan, and for his service of 21 years within the Housing Authority Commission. You went through this process in last year and determined appointments to the Housing Authority Commission. You requested to bring you an item for you to acknowledge the years of service by Mr. McClanahan. He will be present this afternoon, and that will give you an opportunity for you to have a discussion and verbally say thank you for his commitment to public service and to our community.
Thank you. Questions? Commissioner Edwards?
No, but I'm looking forward to thanking Mr. McClanahan for his efforts, for sure.
Commissioner Menzer? Yeah. Okay. With that, we will move on to our next presentation, which is a Martin Luther King Jr. Day proclamation.
Yeah, for your consideration, Madam Chair, Commissioners, is for you to proclaim January 16th, 2023, Martin Luther King Day in Thurston County. You have a copy of the proclamation. I hope you have the opportunity to review it. And we're expecting Dr. Thelma Jackson to be in attendance this afternoon. And I believe she will be pleased for you to consider this proclamation today because she has organized an event next week, and she would like to have the signed proclamation as part of that event, celebrating Martin Luther King Day.
Okay. Thank you. Questions? Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Menzer? Okay. Moving on, there is an opportunity for the public to address the board and county manager's update.
Yes, Commissioners, you will be receiving what I believe significant public testimony this afternoon, and also testimony on the Board of Health later on the same item. So, and this is my perception based on the email traffic that we have received. And this is really related to a what we call is a dancing goats and singing chickens farm. That's the
You didn't make
name.
that up, did you?
No, that's the name of the farm. So there has been a little bit of an interesting sequence of events. And back in April 2019, even this goes a little bit further into the history. The owners, I'm going to refrain to mention the name of the owner at this point. This farm submitted a notice of intent to the Department of Ecology for a permit exemption under RC the WAC 173350, which the exempting activities includes composting activities within this farm. And they review, and the composting at that time was that means the biological degradation and transformation of organic solid waste under controlled conditions designed to promote aerobic decomposition, neutral decay in organic solid waste under uncontrolled conditions is not composting. So that is the definition of what composting is and what is the definition there's under that threshold of requiring a permit. In December 2015, 2022, the Department of Ecology and the staff from Public Health and Social Services got the word that perhaps the composting activities goes beyond what it has been under the threshold of exempt activities. During the visit, staff in the Department of Ecology explained that perhaps those activities may not meet the threshold requirement they need to secure a solid waste permit. So in essence, they have expanded the compost activities. My understanding is they're receiving material from outside sources as part of the compost activities, which creates a little bit different dynamics. And also they are giving away the compost materials to individuals outside of this farm, any regular individual. So that creates a little bit of different dynamics as to why we have issued a notice of violation. And we are working with them as to how they can bring to certain compliance. So that is the gist of the issue. You will hear this afternoon that perhaps public health staff has somehow target this particular farm, and you probably may hear an argument that those activities are permitted and under the exempt conditions, which they're not. Department of Ecology has already issued a letter outlining they are not under the threshold of exempt activities. So we're going to be submitting a letter back to them, including the letter from the Department of Ecology explaining what the issues are. So that's what you will hear in a gist this afternoon from members of the public. You may consider, Madam Chair, depending on the number of public testimonies, since we'll have a public hearing and the Board of Health, to limit the public testimony to 3 minutes. That's my suggestion to you. But I believe we have close to 20 at this point that may be coming up and testifying on this, as well as they will be also testifying in front of the Board of Health.
You mentioned that there was email communications. Could we get that before this afternoon, as well as the letter from the Department of Ecology?
Yeah, I can give you a chronology and I can give you a letter.
Just because I don't know if my seatmates have received these letters, but I haven't, so.
Yeah, there's a lot of emails and they have gone to your inbox. Maybe your assistants will have that. There's a lot of emails that they have come this way. So there is always a little bit, at least from my point of view, a little fine line. Usually we don't respond to public testimony on the spot. I have all that information that I could do so this afternoon. But I think it will be prudent just to let them speak, let them state their perspective to you, and I will go back as a normal process and I will respond to their public testimony next week.
But the Board of Health members won't have the benefit of that.
Right, so, and if you like, I can probably respond at the Board of Health a little bit concise and give that perspective.
I mean, I think we need to, because they're gonna be wondering what this is all about, and we don't meet every week with the Board of Health.
Yep, so if you can give me the floor this afternoon, or maybe David, I would be more than happy to walk you through that during the Board of Health.
That's it for the Board of Health. Okay, any questions?
I don't know as I have questions right now, but I have had the opportunity to talk to the folks at this location. And I made a site visit out there. And not knowing all the particulars from the government side of the equation, I'll be interested to hear that. But it seems like they're doing everything that we kind of have promoted here in our community, which is gardening with no chemicals, using all natural compost, and promoting that type of activity. That's about the best way I can put it at this point in time. So they also work with veterans and promote health and welfare issues with veterans as far as from the gardening perspective, similar to we've got activities in the county where veterans are involved in horse riding or horse activity or something for the benefit of veterans. This is just a different approach, and I don't know much more than that other than they're quite emphatic on their presentation. It'll be interesting to hear this afternoon.
You mentioned Department of Ecology. To what extent is this our decision-making or Department of
So
Ecology's
this,
decision-making?
and there's an interesting relationship. The Department of Ecology is the one who determined the activities in which they meet the threshold or not of that permit. But it's the county is the one who issue a solid waste permit. So that is the partnership, and that's how ecology gets involved. Because ecology is the one who determines what type of activities are allowable within the permit, And we, as a county, since we hold the permit from ecology to issue solid waste permits, we issue that permit. So that is what the tandem approach that we have taken on this and any other solid waste issues.
So if somebody comes in and says they should be exempt, the answer from our perspective is ecology says you're not exempt. We have no choice but to require a permit.
Right, and that's
So it's
probably,
really not gonna be something we could fix even if we wanted to fix it.
right, if we, and I have a letter, I will send a letter, yeah. I will send a letter to you, I will distribute a letter to you and the chronology of this issue. And include is the letter that dated January 10th today by the Department of Ecology to them. And I don't know that will be issued today, but I really want to put everything to a package for David to send to the property owner, all that information. And the intent of this is not to stop their activities. I don't think it's the question whether their activities and the altruistic approach they go about, it's just the solid waste management within their site is the issue. And that is really it's all about.
Sure, Edwards.
I know we're going to be talking about a solid waste ordinance, and I don't know how that's gonna fit. I would just mention, it looks like it's a very small scale. Local folks bring yard waste and such over. I didn't see any activity per se when I was there. But anyway, I hope it's not that this is conflicting with potential commercial organic disposal, because I don't see it's that big of an operation. It's a very small operation. That's all I know about it at this point in time. Thank you.
Any further questions on this? From my perspective, yeah, seeing kind of the response and I think reading the letter from ecology, I would like to do that. Because like Commissioner Menser stated, I don't think it might be kind of in our realm of possibilities. I think it's something that Department of Ecology might be holding the court. So I think it would be good for us to read that letter.
I just hate to see people put their effort to, they get all, they get all lined up, they get everybody, and it's really, maybe they all need to be writing letters to Department of Ecology or testifying in some context there. I don't know, but I just make sure that their efforts go to the right decision makers. If it's not us, then I don't want to see them spinning their wheels. I'm happy to hear what they have to say, but,
So in a way, it's a partnership decision-making process because we do have an interest in issuing the permit. So it's not necessarily the Department of Ecology solely making that decision. And I will, certainly I will.
I guess that's the way I see it. I don't know enough about it, but it looks like it was a joint effort by Thurston County staff and Department of Ecology folks working on this together that brought the attention to us, I guess, as a complaint from our constituents, because our folks were actively involved in this. I don't know if you wanna
we have
call
to
it
enforce,
enforcement.
right?
Yeah,
I don't know the answer.
That's the thing, we have to enforce it.
I don't
What is
know.
the real beat, it's what we heard this afternoon, like, what is the real criticism? That they shouldn't have needed a permit to begin with, or that they didn't actually violate it, so we shouldn't be enforcing it?
Yeah,
That's a different,
that's-
that could be on us.
That's probably what you hear this afternoon, their
The
perspective.
permit's valid, but we didn't violate it. You're wrong in saying we violated it. Well, that would be on us. If it's, we shouldn't, I heard you say in the beginning that their argument is that they fall within exempted activities, and that sounded like an ecology determination, that they don't fall within exempted activities to have needed a permit
Which
to
they
begin
have,
with.
which the letter
That's what the
is-
letter
it
addresses.
specifically outlines that we are the arm in enforcing that.
So that, I believe that's what ecology and the county went to see whether it fell within the permitted, of the permit. And I'm guessing from the letter that we received from the Department of Ecology, it states that they weren't under those.
I guess I'd be very interested in hearing from our staff as to what is the damaging issue, I guess. I mean, is the claim that they're damaging the environment, because that's exactly opposite of what they're attempting to do. And is that maybe the difference between, I don't know, they were supposed to only accept 50 yards of material and now they're at 60. I don't know. But it'll be interesting to hear their perspective. And they're concerned about it. They just don't want to be in a violating situation is what their concern was, sounded like.
Okay,
Yeah,
so,
we'll bring, I'll provide copies to you of the correspondence that I have. And during the Board of County Commissioners meeting, I will not respond, but I certainly will follow up next week. But I will be ready, staff will be ready to circle back on the Board of Health and similar comments.
Would staff be ready to be able to at least give us a basic, well, here's the problem. It's not the volume, it's X, whatever X is.
Rebecca, your hand is up. Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hi, Rebecca Harvey, Climate Mitigation Program Manager. I just have a question. To my understanding from reading the emails, this farmer is working with the Thurston Conservation District, and they're a member of the Voluntary Stewardship Program. So I'm new to all these relationships, don't quite know how they all work, but I'm wondering if the Conservation District should be brought into this conversation.
We'll circle back on that, Rebecca. Thank you.
So I think we're all being, I guess, premature. Let's listen to what the public comment has to say, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, there's, and walking the fine line here is, for me, is without, I think you need to remain objective on the public testimony that you receive. And I really don't want to provide a perspective and answer prior to receiving the public testimony. I think it's prudent for us to come back and give you a perspective that you receive and you make your own assessment of the public testimony. Because, I don't think we should be, at least from my point of view, trying to be proactive and changing your perspective as to how public testimony should be received.
Move on to consent items. There's two. Item 3A from the auditors. It's the approval of the voucher list for the week of December 12th, 2022.
Thank you, Commissioners. There was several voucher lists for several weeks, and some we moved into department items. This particular item for voucher list for the week of December 12th, 2022 for the combined amount of $523,331.78. It is in the consent agenda because we do not have any atrium expenditures.
Okay, any questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Menzer? With that, we'll move on to item 3B from the clerk's office, resolution reclassifying position 05R01553 in the Thurston County Pay and Classification Pay Plan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You reviewed this item last week, and for your consideration is to reclassify the clerk's judicial proceedings specialist to the clerk's legal records coordinator. This is a vacant position, and as a good practice, every office and department needs to go through the assessment in any vacant position to determine if that current classification meets the needs of the business of the office and department. The clerk's office has gone through this process and have determined they need the clerk's legal records coordinator position to better serve their needs. This particular action will have an impact on the budget that goes from $5,333 to $6,482 per month. That will be just about an increase of $1,149 per month, or a 21.5% increase. This position is fully funded by the general fund, and the clerk's office is not requesting additional budget authority for 2023, as they will be able to absorb this increase on their current budget allocation. Any questions?
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, but in the future it will affect the baseline.
Yes, sir. If the board approves this action in 2024 and beyond, it will be part of the base budget,
Thank you.
which will get a full increase.
Questions, Commissioner Munster? Okay. We'll move on to department items, items 4A through 4D from the auditor's office. Their approval of the voucher list from the week of November 8th through the week of December 26th.
Thank you. Just go through all the items from A through 4A, 4 to 4E. And the reason as to why those items are department items is because each one of those voucher lists includes expenditures related to the atrium. So 4A is for the week of November 28, 2022 for a combined amount of $6,488,037. Item 4B is for the week of December 5th, 2022 for the combined amount of $2,986,416.10. Item 4C is for the voucher list of the week of December 19, 2022 for a combined amount of $3,309,455.54. In item 4D is the voucher list for December 26, 2022 for the combined amount of $5,710,798.53. And again, all the four items include atrium expenditures. Mainly at this point is to pay the lease of this building.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No, I think I've expressed my concerns last week. I don't want to beat a dead horse.
Commissioner Munster?
No.
Okay. Moving on to Commissioners' items, items 5A, 2023, election of offices for the Board of County Commissioners.
Yeah, item 5A, Commissioners, for you to approve, Commissioner Mejia to serve as the chair, and Commissioner Messer to serve as the vice chair of the 2023 Board of County Commissioners.
Questions on that?
No questions, thank you.
Item 5B, 2023, Commissioners' representation and assignments on boards and commissions.
This item is for you to confirm the 2023 Board of County Commissioners representations on assigned boards and commissions, which is outside the county in this case. And I believe you have a robust discussion on this late last year,
Do we have the list? Let's see.
just to confirm.
Is there a list?
It should be attached to,
I see you're already working on
but I can send you a revised, I sent the board on the week between Christmas and New Year's. The final list
It's attached to the agenda today.
is attached into the the document.
Under agenda setting or,
It's actually on the board's agenda.
Jamie,
It's
can I
posted.
get a printed copy of it?
We can print a copy for you, commissioners.
I don't mind an electronic, I just need to find it.
It's on, and if on the Board of County Commissioners web presence, there is a Board of County Commissioners board agenda for this afternoon, and including the item, if you click on that, is the attachment. But I can give you a copy.
Yeah, a copy would be
Yeah.
handy,
Jamie's
and
going right.
the public might be interested as well.
No, the public has access to this.
Oh, okay, okay.
So, and again, I submitted to the
When-
board
When you say access to this, does that mean that,
online.
Online.
but
on
we
the-
no longer provide them with a printed copy of what we're dealing with? The public?
Upon request, if somebody requests, we can certainly do that.
Oh, well, I thought we were providing the public those documents when
So-
they came in.
I think what's provided is the agenda. If they want all the different attachments to it,
Okay.
then that's the request that Ramiro is talking about. But the agenda is provided and then the agenda attachments are online.
Thank you.
Now you have one copy, Commissioner Messer's another one. It's another one here.
Oh, got it.
just in case.
So we post the agenda for the public to access online the Friday prior. And when, I will be more than happy to walk you through what we posted, and every single item is attached. So that's a very robust document,
Yeah, okay.
hundreds of pages sometimes. So, but if a member of the public requests a printed copy of any parts of the agenda in whole or in part, we'll be more than happy to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any questions on the commissions and assignments for this year?
Do you find an error?
I thought I did, but no, I was just misreading it.
I just went through
Looks
three
good.
times.
Looks good so far.
I had some time between Christmas and New Year's. But you know, different set of eyes always helpful.
Yeah, there's always something and then it creates confusion later. Cause I don't remember, I remember what I'm assigned to, but I don't remember what I'm alternate to. Or who's alternate to me on things, so it's good to make sure that this is perfectly accurate. Cause I rely on it. Okay.
Okay. So we'll move on to item 5C, TC Media Contract Extension.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I provided a little bit of a background related to this item last week. I will be more than happy to do so. And the board has been tracking this a little bit in more detail throughout the whole 2022 year. And this is related to the services that we have with TC Media. Their current contract lapsed on December 31st, 2022. And the intent in 2022, it was to issue a request for proposals. We did so just to make sure that we have the best possible services related to all the audiovisual elements that you have in order to conduct the county business, particularly yourselves. The request for proposal was issued late last year. We only have one respondent, which is TC Media. And also that didn't give us enough time to negotiate a brand new contract with TC Media as a result of their request for proposal response. So this particular item is for you to consider extending the existing contract, the lapse on December 31st, 2022, for another 6 months with TC Media on the same terms and conditions and amount. And that will give staff the time to negotiate a brand new contract with them. This request for proposals, as you may recall, it was a coordinating effort between the county and the three cities. That would be Olympia, Lacey, and Tumwater, because all of us use the same services with TC Media. So again, if the board approves this extension, that will give us again enough time to bring you back a brand new contract with TC Media in the future.
Questions? Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Menzer? No questions for me. Item 5D, Contract Amendment with DM Ventures Pacific LLC.
You also reviewed this item last week. It was a good conversation. The project managers were here to give you their perspective. It is related to the lease agreement that we have with DM Ventures, is the owner of the 3000 Pacific. During this process, we had a somewhat of an estimate within the lease agreement as to what the tenant improvements will be. And all of us can go through the process, and cost increases happened. We have not gone beyond what we expected to do. And I really put a position that the board needs to consider amending, that will be amendment number 2 to the current lease to increase the tenant improvement amount that we have experienced here in the 3000 Pacific. Amendment number 1 was made effective October 26, 2022. And that particular amendment did only one thing on that lease agreement. On the original lease agreement, we were supposed to be starting paying the lease of this building early in the year, but the delay in construction, delay in furniture put us in the position to move in November, which we did. So I reached out to the owner to see if he can be flexible to begin the first payment of the lease of this building, beginning November 1st, 2022. And that was amendment number 1. Clearly move that date of the first payment of the lease by November 1st, 2022. It didn't change any other elements of the lease, and within the context of the authority, Robin is the one who signed that amendment number 1, and you had a conversation, and Commissioner was clearly remembered, didn't see anything for the board, but that was within the authority of just moving, that term as to when the first payment will be, because we didn't change anything else on the lease. But here we are, amendment number 2 is to increase the tenant improvements that we estimated first on the initial lease. We also had a conversation last week. The board authorized a ceiling of $10 million that included the tenant improvements as well as the furniture. You heard from the project managers last week. They were just under that $10 million. And we have already estimated as to how much additional expenditures will be, and we still perceive that we will be under the $10 million as the board authorized to do everything. What do you see today in this building? Did I miss anything, Robin? Any questions?
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
So this portion under D has nothing to do with the parking, which was a separate issue that there's more information coming, is that it?
Yeah, so you had an item last week where we wanted to, staff requested the board to amend the current parking resolution that you passed back in 2019 to add the additional locations of the atrium. That will be this parking lot in this building, and we have 2 satellite parking lots of the building. You also heard that the current lease agreement that we have with the Ventures includes all the parking that you have. So there's no additional compensation related to the parking that we have here in the atrium, because the owner made a commitment that he will find as much parking available for county operations, which he did at no cost within the including of the whole lease. So there is no additional cost associated with the parking that we have here at the 3000 Pacific and the 2 satellite locations. And I think in the resolution last week, the staff proposed was just to add into that resolution the locations of the atrium. But also the board had a great conversation. I believe Commissioner Mason said, do we really need to have a legislative action to add additional parking lots? So good question. And I believe that that's what I took this item out. I'm going to have a conversation with Robin to see what will be the best possible proposal that we can bring to you. And you talk about the possibility of delegating that authority to the county manager. So give us some time to.
Let's chat about that
yeah.
and we'll.
So I was waiting until Robin to come back, but this item is off your agenda. Did I answer your question, Commissioner?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Menzer? I do have questions, but I'm wondering if we can move this item to next week. That way I can have conversation with you
Yeah, and
at our check-in. Or is this
It-
under a time?
It's time sensitive because we cannot pay the vendor until the contract's amended and they've already done the work.
Okay. I'll talk with you after, I guess. Just have a couple of questions on this. And, well, I'm glad that we're under that total value of of the 10, I just have a couple questions that, okay.
When you say under, I think it was $6,000 under.
It was $6,000
No,
under?
that was the latest that we got, but I think it's grabbing a little bit more of the budget. There is some cost that needed to be distributed to some offices and departments. So the under became a little more under. So maybe in the $50,000 range. So, but it's still under. And I believe from staff's perspective, that has always been the focal point. And we have been very stringent, at least from my point of view, and Robin, I can attest with Robin, is not to just allow for all the wants. Some offices and departments would like to do is really is providing what we need. And I believe if you look around is a very good facility. We can provide a very open government and services to our residents of the county.
Yeah, and I guess one final thing, and that'd be on the parking that we're gonna get more information on later, is, does that include, so all the expenses incurred having to do with that are going to be not on the taxpayers, but on, well, I mean, the total project, about 18 million is on the taxpayers, but on this particular issue, the person, the company that we're leasing from is taking care of that, I take it, is that right?
Part of the lease cost, yes.
Part of the lease costs, okay,
Right, we don't pay the parking separately.
okay.
And I believe last week you had a conversation when you talked about the $18 million cost. You add in the tenant improvements, the furniture, plus the lease on the next 7 years, correct?
Yes, that's correct, thank you. Okay.
Okay. Moving on to community planning and economic development. Item 6A, set a public hearing for development code docket item A19, wireless code update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You had a good conversation on this item last week. As a matter of background, the Planning Commission reviewed this item several work sessions through 2021 and 22. And to the point, they held a public hearing on June 2nd, 2021, where they accepted public testimony. Following to that public hearing, there was a suggestion that perhaps the board may consider forming a stakeholder committee. And that was the case. They formed a stakeholder committee and reviewing this proposal. And the stakeholder committee met 3 times, which is outlined by the board's decision in creating this committee. The Planning Commission, following up those meetings, had an additional work sessions and another public hearing. And the Planning Commission voted 5-3-1. That will be 5 and recommended this proposal. 3 were against and 1 was absent. You receive copies of the minority report, and also you receive briefings related to this particular matter in October 12th, 2022, a follow-up briefing November 9th, 2022. At that point is where you asked staff to bring an AIS for you to set the public hearing. The public hearing at this point is for your consideration is for February 7th, 2023 at 5:30 in the afternoon. And I believe that was the board desire to make sure the public has the opportunity to come and provide their perspective related to this item. So this item is only for you to consider setting the public hearing.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Menzer?
I guess just a comment. I mean, we can do this public hearing, but I don't know that I'm gonna be in a position to make any decisions about it because we've set up a process that's got a fundamental flaw. The commissioners didn't really understand what was going on, so we asked for the stakeholder group. That was the point. The stakeholder group was then told what they wanted to get into A, B, and C, and they were told, well, we're not getting into that. It's beyond the scope. The commissioners would need to give us direction to get into those things. So we're just going around in a circle chasing our tail. And the things that I would have wanted input from the stakeholder group on, they were dissuaded from addressing. And so now I'm still in the position of not really having that input. So we can do this public hearing, but I'm just a warning, because I know there's gonna be a question of, well, do we act now, or what more does the commissioners wanna know? And I mean, I think we're gonna hear about some of these issues at the public hearing, and I'm hoping when we hear about those, then the board can discuss, do we need to follow up on them? You know, does the board need to give a direction that we didn't previously give? But I've got emails that, where it's just laid out, where the stakeholders were told we would need board direction to allow, to get into that particular issue.
Can
And
I-
so
Yeah.
it just feels like we're chasing our tail.
Can I follow up on that? Because, well, one of the reasons I want to move forward with a public hearing is because on the minority report, you know, there was a lot of questions in regards to public engagement or concerns about public engagement and whether really the community was involved, and there were concerns about the stakeholder group. And so I thought a public hearing, it's the best way to kind of bring those concerns forward and for us, instead of having individual meetings, to just hear about them as a group, either for or against or questions. And so that's why I wanted to have this public hearing, is because I wanted to hear the actual concerns right there with the people there and have that opportunity. I am not ready to move forward with an action at that point because again, like we had that first meeting and I'm like, I'm just delving into this issue. I've been delving into it. It's a very complicated issue. And I would like to have, you know, another follow-up after that public hearing, because I think at that point, it's when we, as a board, need to discuss whether we are going to move forward or, you know, is there something that we missed, that we didn't give the scope to our stakeholder group. And so I would rather us just move to close the public hearing at that, on February 7th, and then after that have a follow-up briefing for us to either discuss public comment or give additional direction to staff, but go from there.
Absolutely on point, Commissioners. I was not expecting to bring an action for you to consider on this. It is complicated, but as you may recall, when Ken Feldman participated in the conversations with you in some of the requests of the, not all, some of the requests from the stakeholder groups, it was mainly related to changing federal regulation. And changing federal regulations out of our purview, as you know. So, and that was the perspective that Ken Feldman provided to you and some of those briefings. But certainly, you know, it's great to have a public hearing for you to hear directly from the citizens, and considering the complexities of this matter, a follow-up briefing based on the public testimony is definitely on point.
I do think that the county manager covered a couple of my questions as far as regard to outside counsel and expertise in this particular area. And that's where the outside counsel comes in, right?
Right.
And then the federal requirements that we're trying to become in compliance with.
Yeah, aligned to the
Aligned
federal
with.
requirements.
And then are we up against a time frame on this issue? So we start getting fined by the FCC if we don't get it done?
No,
or
and I
what
think
happens?
you heard there is not a specific timeline. We're way behind to align our code to the federal regulation for years. That I think is taking an action eventually to clarify the code, our code, in order for any outfit who wants to do business related to wireless, they have at least the code. You also heard from Ken Feldman that there's some of the outfits, big wireless providers, they're governed by the federal law, and they can probably go ahead and do the work without necessarily the county. is how we can gravitate into something that we can probably have a say on the permitting process with our county code. It's really the genesis of this. And that is really what the difficulty of county code aligning to federal regulations when an outfit, AT&T, Verizon, all the big daddies, they provide wireless services. They're governed by, well, they are. They're governed by federal regulation. And that's the difficulty of this process.
Okay, so moving on to item 7A, Public Health and Social Services, contract with Olympia Mutual Aid Partners for Safe Spaces Pilot Project.
You also reviewed this item last week. This has been a little bit of ongoing conversation at the Regional Housing Council. The Olympic Regional Clean Air Agency, ORCA, has received many complaints about on a couple of homeless camp locations as to the materials they're burning is creating an issue on their quality. So in order for them to address this particular matter, they contacted the Olympia Mutual Aid Partners to see if they can provide an outreach on a pilot project type of scenario where the Olympia Mutual Aid Partners can go and start educating those individuals on the homeless camps, improving access to safer warming, cooking, lighting, and water purification resources and alternatives, improving access to garbage removal services, improving access to education, communication, and safer resources and alternatives. This pilot project was presented by ORCA and the Olympia Mutual Aid Partners to the Regional Housing Council. And the Regional Housing Council unanimously voted to recommend approval to the Board of County Commissioners on this one-year pilot project. The cost of this pilot project is $101,469. And this is coming from the set aside of the emergency funding the Regional Housing Council does on a yearly basis. They set aside for emergency response of $200,000. And the funding comes from the House Bill 2163, which is document recording fees, which all the jurisdictions in the county contributes to this effort. That is in just Commissioner Mejia provided her perspective related to, she serves on the ORCA board as well as the Regional Housing Council. And Keely is here also to answer any questions the board may have.
Keely, anything you would like to add before I move to questions?
Just a reiteration, thank you, Ramiro, for that great summary, that the 3 fire chiefs did meet with ORCA and with OLIMAP and were supportive of this process, and that ORCA is also contributing funds towards cleanup of the camps ongoing. So it will be a mutual partnership in more than just an understanding, but also in financial partnership as well.
Questions, Commissioner Alvarez?
I thought that it was gonna state 1 year. I thought we talked about that.
Oh,
Last week,
thank
and
you.
it
We'll
was not
add
stated on here.
on the description, the year 2023. Thank you for bringing that up.
And then, I don't know if we came up with, were we gonna get an idea of what the criteria was that we were going to expect, so we would know if we're successful on this particular project or not?
So as part of the overall strategy, and we will add in the contract with mutual aid, Olympia Mutual Aid Partners, there will be data collection, and we will be tracking as to how effective this pilot project will be. So it will be an element as to how we determine the success or not of this pilot projects and the contract.
Okay, thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Munster?
Not today, we covered it last week, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to Public Works, item 8A, set a public hearing to consider adoption of a compost procurement ordinance.
Thank you, Commissioners.
This is time.
House Bill 1799 was passed on the 2002 Washington legislative process, which outlines the organic management in the county, and this is what jurisdictions will have to do. in this particular ordinance, made the point of based on the 2015 disposal levels, each local jurisdictions will have to rescue 20% of the previously disposed edible food for human consumption by 2025, based on the 2015 thresholds, and divert 75% previously disposed organic materials from landfills by 2030. This particular ordinance was presented to the board in a briefing on November 30, 2022. The result of that briefing was for you to for ask staff to bring an item to set the public hearing. The Solid Waste Advisory Committee has reviewed this resolution, and in fact, they have been working in drafting this particular ordinance to align with the requirements of House Bill 1799. And the SWAC unanimously supported this ordinance and have submitted to the Board of County Commissioners as a recommendation for you to approve. Dean, do you have anything to add?
I have nothing additional. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, questions, Commissioner Edwards?
I'm wondering about the timing on this and on the ordinance requirement that out of House Bill 1799 from last year. Are we up against a time frame? And the reason I ask that question is we've now just recently, and I guess that was last week, but we're gonna hear public testimony about it today. Is there any reason to wait to set this hearing, maybe set the hearing next week, or at least have discussion on it next week, after we've become more knowledgeable about the issue at hand that we discussed earlier involving solid waste composting? That's kind of my question.
My perspective is those two issues are unrelated. The issue that you will be hearing this afternoon is related to current law, current county code. This particular ordinance is to meet the requirements of management organics as a result of the new House bill. So they're not necessarily related with all due respect. But certainly I understand if you'd like to have additional information, my recommendation is for you to set a public hearing, hear public testimony, and that in addition to the public testimony you may receive this afternoon. And at that point, you may probably consider doing something different with the ordinance, because I will not be bringing an ordinance if you don't feel comfortable in approving it. This item is only to set the public hearing.
I guess my concern is I don't know what I'm gonna hear today. I don't know what I'm gonna hear from staff, and I don't know what I'm gonna hear from the public. It sounds like it has something to do with this ordinance, and I'm just wondering, are we up against a time frame? I mean, would it make a difference as far as some kind of compliance? You know, are we supposed to have this in place by a date certain? Or is it gonna be like a lot of other things that the state comes out with and we work towards compliance? So are we up against a date? That's
Hey, Dean, could you answer that question, how quickly we need to come with the compliance with the new law?
Sure. The new law was intended to be implemented as of January 1 this year. Ecology, when they issued that requirement, fairly quickly backed off from it because a lot of jurisdictions just did not have the time to pass ordinances to get it in place. So what's happening now is we are actually within Public Works and Central Services, we're working on tracking all of our compost use now in anticipation of this ordinance passing. So there really is no I guess time pressure. Ecology's new expectation is that we will have an ordinance in place no later than past the first quarter of this year.
And that's so at the end of March, we're supposed to have this in place?
That's not an official date. Their lead, the person that's the lead for Department of Ecology, has said that they feel like that's a reasonable amount of time. And in the meantime, as long as you're showing progress toward an adopted ordinance, ecology's happy.
They're gonna take your birthday away if we don't get it done today or next week or something? I mean, what's the penalty? Or are we just up against an attempt to get it done? And I'm not saying we don't need to get it done. I'm just a little concerned that we set a date, then we're locked in on something and we don't know what we're gonna hear from staff today or from persons that may be affected by this today. This is a brand new development.
Yeah, well, one thing that could might help you is our reporting requirement to the state on our compost use is an every 2-year requirement. So our first report doesn't even go to ecology till at the end of 2024.
Okay.
So we're when this ordinance is passed, and if and when it's passed, that's really we've got a lot more time before we actually do that reporting to them. So
does that mean that the board has until 2024 to pass the ordinance?
Jeff?
well, no, the spirit of the House bill was really did provide dates, and it was the end of last year, but they realized that that was a little bit aggressive and it wasn't allowing for public testimony and for processes to work. So again, it's unofficial, but they allowed some forgiveness into the first quarter of this year. That's all I can tell you. It's not official in any way, but
Jeff, you have your hand up. Anything you would like to add?
Yes, certainly. I just want to point out that this ordinance is unrelated to the other issue that was raised, because really all this ordinance is requiring is talking about how the county will use compost in its construction projects. So it's just requiring us to look at potential uses. So, for example, and in stormwater, road building, or other construction projects, that we're going to make our best effort to utilize compost in those projects. That's specifically related to county functions specifically. So, and how we're going to use that, and then how we report our use of that to ecology. Just want to make that clarification.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, I think that does help to make sure that we're not premature on something else. So that helps me a lot. Thank you.
But you're requesting that perhaps this item be moved to next week?
Well, I was going to, but I think with Jeff's clarification here, I don't know that I have that same concern. If it's strictly about government business, how they do business, nothing to do with what we might hear about today. That was my concern, so.
Thank you for that
I'm good.
clarification, Jeff.
Yes, thank you.
Commissioner Menzer, any questions?
No.
Okay, no questions for me. Item 8B, project prospectus and local program state funding agreements for the Safe Routes to School program, Pleasant Glade Elementary pedestrian improvements, CP number 61523.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You also reviewed this item last week. The county, through the Department of Public Works, received $1,440,000 in a federal grant from the Safe Routes to School program for the design and construction of improvements related in the vicinity of Pleasant Glade Elementary. And this is mainly pedestrian improvements. The project will improve safety of school children and pedestrians along Albernady Road Northeast, which currently have no sidewalks, no bike lanes, and lighting and crosswalks, and those improvements will include those between 15th Avenue and Pleasant Glade Elementary School. The process that we go about when we receive a federal grant is we need to engage the state, local programs through a project prospectus and a local agency agreement where we have to obligate the funding for this particular grant. So this particular item for your consideration is to authorize the Director of Public Works to go ahead and sign the project prospectus as well as the local agency agreement to secure the funding, to begin the design, and also to authorize the Department of Public Works Director to sign any supplements to secure and obligate the fundings for right-of-way if needed, as well as construction funding. Brian?
No, I have nothing else to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
Yes, the dollar amount, is that the total for the project, what the grant was, or are we contributing as well?
It's a 10% match. Sorry.
10%?
Yeah. Yeah, the project is 1.6 million.
And is part of our 10%, I guess that'd come out of the road fund?
Yes, sir.
But possibly, would that 10% be covered by work product by staff?
Yeah, work product as our work. Yeah, it's part of our design and right away will be in that 10%.
Okay, so dollar outlay might be less than, we're not gonna draw
So-
down our road fund.
So you will, because what I think what you're asking is if the labor costs associated with the engineering will be part of the match.
Yes.
So it's all inclusive. So the federal grant will cover the engineering costs, the hourly rates for the engineers, and also will the match from the road fund will cover some of the labor costs as
Okay.
well. By moving to construction, it will be the same match. 10% comes from the
Okay.
road fund and the rest from the grant. Did I answer your questions?
Yeah, you did, thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Munson? No questions for me. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Okay, then we have our standing items. We have a public hearing starting at 3:30 PM. It's a public hearing to hear objections to the proposed roll of rates and charges for Pattison Lake Management District number 23.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think you did a great description of the item for this afternoon's public hearing. So you will be receiving public testimony this afternoon. We will be asking the board only to close the public hearing this afternoon, and we'll follow up with additional briefing depending on the public testimony we might receive this afternoon. We have already received a couple of comments. We'll be providing this to you and see what how the public testimony was this afternoon, which I believe is going to be also significant.
So Pattison Lake's already voted to form. So the comments ought to be about,
The rates.
I'm charged too much, I'm not charged enough.
Yeah, absolutely no point. It will not be related to whether the LMD is,
Good idea or
It's
bad
good,
idea
yeah.
in the public
it's
interest.
just
not
whether
the
somebody
public.
can argue whether the proposed rates on a specific property or on a specific individual are not fair, if that's my words. So it will be specifically on the charges.
And the board could then change the charges?
That's a
with
good
that?
question. So, Tim?
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. Tim Wilson. No, the board could not change the rates at this time without going through a public process, another public process. The action in front of the board after this public hearing will either be to accept the roll of rates as they are, or a corrected roll of rates and assessments if any mistakes are identified today. Really the sole purpose of today's public hearing is for ratepayers to come forward and help us identify if their parcels have been put into the wrong classification. So as an example, if someone has mistakenly been put in as a lakefront owner and their charge would be $510 and they should be an upland owner, this is the opportunity for them to review the roll and make us aware of any mistakes.
Can you clarify that at the beginning of the hearing so we don't get people far off the field of what?
Absolutely. Yes, I sure can. And most of the comments that have been received and summarized and sent off to the clerk of the board already are more general in nature. We aren't receiving word of any mistakes in writing yet, but certainly we'll frame that up for the public hearing.
Thank you.
That's good.
Okay, then after that, we would move to a Board of Health draft agenda. And with that, that's our next item on our agenda, so I'll pass it to the Chair of the Board of Health.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. We'll have, hopefully we can start as close to 4:30 as possible, calling the meeting to order. Approving agenda, having an opportunity for public to address the Board of Health, and it sounds like we're expecting some compost comments. Anything else? I don't know. So
The only question I was gonna ask, Kurt Harden, Interim Director for Public Health and Social Services. The only question I was gonna ask is if whether or not the Board of Health may want an update or on the point in time count, since that will be taking place later this month. And I
Can
didn't-
you do a check on the sound for a second? Hey, Jason, can you hear Kurt? Or Ben, can you hear Kurt? I'm just looking to see if somebody can hear Kurt.
Anybody hear me?
Yes, I can hear Kurt Harden.
Okay, thank you. I
Then
just
he
want to,
always hears me.
no, because we're
It was telepathy, so.
have this new system. I just want to make sure that your statements are.
Which is another reason why we're here in person, because, not that we don't trust technology.
No, but it's been for the members of the public as well.
Good. So anyway, Commissioner Mentzer, I was wondering if you wanted to consider adding the point in time count, because that's later this month, and Keely Marino is available at the Board of Health meeting timeframe to be able to provide a quick synopsis, because obviously, we don't want to go too much into detail, but just give a quick overview for the Board of Health members.
any thoughts about that? I don't,
And the only reason I'm bringing it up is the Board of Health is new. 3 correction for the members are new. We haven't talked too much about point in time with the Board of Health. We have with the Board of County Commissioners. And just didn't know if that would be something you might want to consider. And of course, I know foundational public health is going to have a lot of time frame and take up a lot of time, so that's why I bring it up for consideration.
Could we send out a written synopsis to the
We
Board of
can-
Health members and
or the
just?
board of, or the director's report.
Yeah, we can do
Touch
that.
on it.
Well,
This is one of the
we can put it-
activities of public health in this next,
Yeah, we
rather
can-
than having it as a
Okay, sure.
discrete agenda item.
What we can do is we can add it to the health officer's report, and then she can defer over to myself, and I can give a quick update.
Sounds like that's
Yeah.
consensus.
Okay, right.
Okay, first item, introduction of new public health and social services director.
And then I'll do an introduction for David Bain, and this will be the first time that the Board of Health members officially have met him. And just go through a quick 5-minute summation and give David an opportunity to make a few comments as well.
Yeah, don't hold back, David, if you.
Yeah,
absolutely. We sat through interviewing you, but there's several other Board of Health members that may not know anything about you.
I'll keep it brief.
Yeah, we can keep it brief. And we'll ask any question, I'll just open it up for questions from the board, so, okay, very good. Next is the Board of Health proclamation schedule.
And then we're gonna ask Jamie to help us go through a proposed proclamation for the Board of Health and to run through similar to what's done for the Board of County Commissioners.
Is this one for the?
Yeah.
Board of Health?
So as you may recall, when you as a board, county commissioners went through the proclamations for the 2023 calendar year, there was some question whether it should be fitted within the Board of Health or not. And I think engaging the entire Board of Health on that decision will absolutely help.
Jamie Caldwell, clerk of the board, the list that you have there, I've removed all the ones that the BoCC is going to be, that you guys had selected to add to your schedule. So it's just the remaining ones for them to select from.
And
Can anybody hear Jamie? And again, I'm just checking the sound in here.
She was on a microphone.
No, but
Ben, did you hear Jamie? We're gonna call on you again. 'Cause we know you're there.
It was a little harder to hear Jamie. She was a lot quieter.
I'll speak up.
okay.
Okay. So we've got, okay, so I guess my question on this is how, I understand what we're trying to do. My question is, how are we gonna do it in the sense of, are we gonna try to pick one per month and have one per month and then discuss it a month by month? I mean, or are we gonna basically say, which one, or are we gonna say more like, we don't have to have any proclamations? Are there certain ones that that the Board of Health members feel are important enough to include versus trying to fill one per every month? I guess I'm just trying to figure out, and then if we've got 4 of them in April and 4 of them in October and 4 of them in September proposed, how are we gonna select and vote? And
Okay, and outside of your vision, I think Commissioner Mejia has her hand up.
Yeah.
I have a comment.
Yeah.
I think one a month is too much. We have one a month with basically the Board of County Commissioners and,
I'd say
It's a-
pick 6 to me, like
Yeah,
every other
right.
month, pick the top 6. I say we go on a whiteboard and rank the, vote for the,
I'll be more than happy to go on a whiteboard here, but if I have one,
Yeah, I think,
we'll have one here, by the way.
well, you
I don't
know,
know.
we had a lot of great discussion at the Board of County Commissioners about this. There's a lot of great ones. For me, it's one a month seems quite a bit because that's what we're doing with the Board of County Commissioners and just the length of the meetings is kind of what I'm thinking about, especially because coming up, we have a lot of very heavy discussions coming up. And I would rather us really be able to go deep into those instead of doing sometimes proclamations where no one attends or there's, you know, not that much of a community interest. So I would have us really think about these and the ones that we picked moving forward. So kind of that's I think I would be on board with 6.
I definitely would say, you know, to encourage the board to have no more than one a month, unless it was really, somebody felt really strongly about it. Jamie, are all of these, have these been vetted for like some connection to health? Cause I see a couple, 3 here that would be kind of a stretch for even being a Board of Health, like Native American and Alaska Native Heritage Month, or I saw another one here that seemed like it wasn't very health-y related.
Indigenous Peoples' Day.
Yeah, that one, there's another one here too, somewhere. Anyway,
Most of what we received came over from Public Health and Social Services. There were a few that were left on this list that were outside of PHSS, so that's probably why they're not lining up quite as much. I left them on
Volunteer
there.
Recognition Day.
Yeah,
What?
that wasn't one that we received through Public Health and Social Services initially. It's one of the ones that we received from another department. So some of them don't quite line up because it was just the entire general list that was provided for requests. I'm more than happy to edit it and take it off as well.
Yeah, National Recovery Month, there's 4. I think we should just take them off here. They're not close enoughly next to with the Board of Health to be worried about it. And that'll make it a little less daunting of a task.
Oh, Juneteenth is another one.
There's 5. City manager.
Maybe at the lunch hour, Jamie and I can go through. And yeah, that's a good point. I think just narrowing down. And if I may suggest, I think having an objective at the beginning of the conversation, perhaps once a month, just to get the board members involved and engaged on some of those will be adequate. It may end up that probably you may have 8 as opposed to 6 or 12, you know, when the conversation is done and over. And going month by month will be maybe, you know, conversations with the board members to see yay or nay. But I think.
Okay, so just tick them through one by month. We'll pare it down a little bit and 5 or 6 of them knocked out and we'll just, okay. All right, any other questions? Yeah, please, Shirley.
I don't know where this fits, but it's gonna affect the Board of Health, it sounds like, today's meeting. And it's Board of County Commissioners issue. And I thought I heard the possibility, maybe we're gonna change from 4 minutes to 3 minutes, having to do with the number of
We'll
folks.
see how many.
Depending on.
Yeah, depending. But do we have a clock that's a visible clock? Have we got that solved yet for both meetings?
It was supposed to be moving the clock. It's not quite here yet, but I will have a phone.
Somebody's gonna have a stopwatch or something?
I will have a stopwatch and I will give him a 30-second warning.
I don't know, I mean, I know we're trying to do that, but if we had some kind of a LED clock or
Could
something.
we add it on Zoom?
Or
Is that
somehow
like-
could it
did
be
that
on
once.
there?
The clock in Zoom, it takes over the whole
Oh,
screen.
okay, well,
It's
never
just-
mind then,
it's
I
just-
just,
I think like maybe for people on Zoom, like if you could do just the clock while people in the boardroom are speaking, that way they have a visual cue. But once people on Zoom are speaking, we can do the stopwatch and say, you have 30 seconds. That way they, it's,
it just seems, to me, it just seems kind of rude to the public to interject that each time they're talking. And if we just had like an LED, God, they must sell them for $20 or something over it,
Yeah,
some
one would think, but
That's not true,
the
huh?
timer function
Ah,
is
okay.
what makes it.
Yeah. So,
And having a remote capability, because you
Okay,
All
we
of
just-
that.
We'll just suffer through, sounds like.
well, is my suggestion,
working on
Jamie,
the
is that
tech.
okay if, for people in the boardroom, is that okay for?
I
if they-
like your suggestion.
If they can have a
Yeah.
visual
Well,
cue
yeah,
with
if
the
we could
Zoom,
do
and
it.
then, once people on Zoom are talking, we could just give them that.
Do
so
the
there's-
Ramirez
yeah.
way.
Will people at the podium be able to see one of the screens?
probably that one. We're gonna put the podium right here.
Okay.
In front of you. So we'll move the podium. So, and again, give us a little latitude. We're working the logistics on the new setting. So, we'll put the podium here. We add additional chairs. I think the setting on the chairs seems to be adequate for the board meeting this afternoon. Because the other direction was a little bit off, but, just, give us some latitude as we work through the logistics on this.
Okay, the main item for the meeting this evening will be item 5, foundational public health funding presentation. So Thurston, why don't you
And
walk us
so-
through what we're trying to do here.
Sure, what we're trying to do is, working with, and appreciate Robin Campbell, giving us some of her time on her vacation last Friday. But, working through, taking back up to, out of the so-called weeds and getting back up to the policy level for the Board of Health members. And number one, coming in and saying, this is what foundational public health is. This is, what we funded, what the Board of County Commissioners, probably what the Board of County Commissioners has already funded. This is the remaining funding areas, and then walk them through a spreadsheet that talks through the different proposals as we go down through. And then asking them to make a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners for the placeholders already in the budget, so the budget authority is there, but my recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners on where those that funding should be dispersed to. And so that's the intent for this afternoon. And it's the biggest item on the agenda. There's a few others that should go fairly quickly, but the majority of the meeting is gonna be taken up with talking through and presenting to the Board of Health members. And also, trying to help them understand that the Public Health and Social Services budget, $63 million. Foundational public health is just a small piece of that, and it's hard to convey the entire breadth and width of all the services provided by Public Health and Social Services through that $63 million.
Can you just, obviously not going through the whole thing, but can you just give us maybe one example from this handout here
Sure.
to show us kind of what the organization of this information is?
What'll,
Like
and
looking
I.
at task one, for example, or one of the ones where there's remaining money.
Sure. Let me find in the packet here, the location of it, but. So as we go through, the first one will be one slide. It'll say what we've done previously. So foundational public health, what it's designed to, yeah, correct. What it's designed to do, that's the slide there. And then as we walk through what's already funded, then we're going to go down here and say, okay, the $1.4 million is an example on task one. Task balance remaining 0. So as we go through, the first one that has a remaining balance in it is case investigation capacity, foundational public health definitions. And it's to bring in a program assistant.
You're at task 5 right now.
Correct, task 5, thank you. Program assistant, disease control and prevention, and it's recommending $42,309. The task balance is there, so what you see is remaining balance. And as we walk through, it's going to be walking through what the recommendation is from staff, the cost of that recommendation, and then the remaining balance as we get all the way through. And then at the end, it'll go through one-time expenditures that we're going to ask the Board of Health to recommend to the Board of County Commissioners if funding becomes available. And so what that'll be is at the end down here, you'll see something that says one-time recommended requests. And what that is if we're underspent in any of the categories, we're going to ask the Board of Health to recommend to the Board of County Commissioners the list here so that the Director of Public Health, if there's underspent funds, can move that funding over to spend on these items right here. And one of the areas here is that this is staff's recommendation on the priorities, but the Board of Health can move these around, if they need to, or feel that, an example is maternal child health is a higher priority than emergency preparedness, then the Board of Health can have that discussion and change the rank order that we have here. But the intent is for the Board of Health to make a recommendation, the Board of County Commissioners hopefully take that recommendation and act on it. That allows the Director of Public Health and Social Services to take underfunded or unused funding and move it over to something that meets the definition of foundational public health, if that makes sense.
Okay, but stepping back.
Yes, okay, so
Back to task 5. From what the first piece of paper seems to tell me there's $274,000 to allocate. Now where do I look then to see what those recommendations are?
On how to spend it.
Yeah.
That's on that next
The next
page
page.
that you're
Right.
looking at.
Task 5 doesn't show, it says nothing under recommended initiatives.
They don't recommend any additional spending in task 5 at this time.
So we take that 274 and put it somewhere else?
So when you go through the list, you'll see that there's money remaining. Part of what Kurt didn't explain, and I'm gonna dive in, is that those one-time items on the last page don't fit in the buckets where there's money remaining. So one of the things that we can do is take tasks out of task 1 that is totally fungible, if you will. Move them into buckets where money remains, free up money in task 1 that can be used for any foundational public health purpose, and fund some of those things that are in the one-time list that can't be funded in buckets that are fully spent. So part of the proposal is to take items out of task 1, move them to task 5, free up money in task 1, and fund some of those one-time items in task 1. It's very complicated because we're moving the puzzle pieces around, but at the end, it all fits pretty much.
Right.
And so it's complicated. It's a complicated conversation, and we felt like the best way to approach it is to say, again, here's what we already spent. Here are proposals for buckets that have money. Here are things that we'd like to also spend money on, one-time items. And here's a way to create capacity to do that.
I have a question.
Does that,
Well, it's as clear as mud.
I understand, but it's complicated because of the way the state
And-
contracts are structured.
And I'm looking at task 5 on this unnumbered page here, I don't know.
Is that task, is it page 104 or is it?
Well, there's no page number on it that I see, and it says, that we've got 42,000, or that's the cost, 42. And I'm wondering how that fits, I mean, that's what's left. I just think it's gonna be pretty complicated
It's
to
a
try
very
and make sense out of
complicated
this.
conversation.
And especially if we're gonna do this, I would think it would need to be, we'd have to have a PowerPoint, so we all are on the same
We're
sheet
gonna
of
put this,
music as we go along.
we're gonna put the spreadsheet up on the PowerPoint. And then that will be displayed for everybody as we walk through it. But the spreadsheet is what we just talked about after last meeting, to make it the simplest process to be able to have them look at a spreadsheet with recommendations and then the funding amounts in each recommendation.
I mean, it looks like we're kinda asking for a half of an FTE or something like that, and that's the dollar amount that goes with it. Well, that's what I'm seeing on.
That's
that
what we've
task.
already,
Yes.
at my understanding.
Yes, that page is what the Board of
It's
County
already done.
Commissioners has already committed to in your biennial budget, or
Okay.
your.
I just might bring up, maybe number all the pages and stuff, so we're always on. I know it's a little thing, but to us folks that are trying to follow along, it's bigger. I just wonder if we aren't getting too far in the weeds with trying to explain that. But it's gonna be complicated, that's
Certainly
all.
delegate authority to the Director of Public Health to use the money in ways that it fits as they see fit, but commissioners generally want a little more say in what the money's spent on.
And the other piece on this is it has to be spent by June 30th of 2023.
Which is why we are saying, please give us a direction now.
So it's very complicated even for the three of you who have been embedded into this whole process for the last 2-3 years.
Yeah, that's what I think it's
You
been
know,
more.
it's become a little more complicated for those board members who are just coming cold into this process. I think the objective of the Board of County Commissioners setting aside $300,000 was to bring the Board of Health members into somewhat of a decision-making process to provide recommendations to you. And is it fair to say that task 1 is probably the most flexible element?
That it is completely
So, and I think
flexible.
what I understand is since the task 1 has already been allocated and funded, the objective is to, because other tasks have some capacity, funding capacity, and but also have restrictions on each one of those, what we can do is move in some of the tasks of task 1 and lay it out on the rest of the tasks, so we allow the capacity, more flexible capacity on the task 1, which creates a little better conversation with the Board of Health.
Right.
I think that's the genesis of this afternoon's conversation. And so that's what I think the intent of staff is create capacity on the more flexible task, which is task 1.
So we definitely had that conversation, David and Kurt and I and the team. What looked very confusing is when we said, here's the decisions the Board of County Commissioners has already made. And then you saw items that were in task 1 showing up on other tasks. Then you go down the, hey, we already funded that path, and that became even more confusing, which is why it's laid out the way it is. Here are the things you've decided. Here are the concepts for where there's money available. then if we move some things out of task one, you've created additional capacity for items, additional items that we would then put in those buckets. The flexible bucket.
And as noted by David, we are kind of getting this funding and almost concurrently having to run with the funding as we get it. But in the future, the foundational public health concept is to have sustainable funding that's predictable down the road. And right now, it's the ramp up piece that because we anticipate additional funding on July 1st from the state that will augment more, and the 2.65 million becomes base amount, maintenance amount, and then, but we'll get more funding coming in from the state is what everything's looking at from the legislature and also from the governor's budget going forward. So eventually we get into a rhythm where it's maintenance level and we get the predicted amount of foundational public health coming in every year.
Suggestion for this afternoon, perhaps. Just the whole issue can be, go on at a very, use Commissioner was rabbit hole, because that just lends itself to the complexities of it. Maybe this afternoon we can approach, if you're okay, Commissioner Menser, is, okay, this is all the different tasks. We're proposing to move tasks from task one to other tasks. So task one has this capacity in terms of funding. Board members, what is the ideas that you have? Just get down to the point, and then we vet those ideas, whether it meets the criteria or not.
So you want to ask the board members for what their ideas are
Yeah,
for
because
spending the money
is it-
rather than go with the proposals?
Well, we have proposals, but I think we need to engage the board members because they already floated ideas on the last meeting. Whether those ideas really meets the requirements, that's a different conversation, but I think we need to ask them.
So
From their expertise, if they see anything they would like to see.
Agree, we're also tight on time in this particular round. We will have so much more time for the next round of funding.
And the other concern I have is we won't have vetted costs. In other words, we will be taken till, we won't be, it's gonna be hard for me to, and Robin, I believe, in the budget office, to be able to this afternoon have the cost of whatever proposals brought forward by the board members. Yeah.
And then
I think we're stuck. I mean, we went through this in our planning meeting. I
So-
mean, and they wanted me to kind of lay out that this is not gonna be how it's gonna work next year, but it's just gonna have to be kind of how it works this year.
So then this afternoon, I think we need to approach this in a very direct request from the Board of Health. This is where we're asking you, board members, to concur with the staff's recommendation.
Yeah, I mean, that's
I mean,
kind of how it
that's
is.
that's
that
probably
is
ended
where
up
we're
because
at
we're
today.
because they then because how we left it last board meeting is the board members of the Board of Health have the option to provide some perspective as to how this could be. Really that's not an option this time around.
For this particular round, and timing is everything, right? And we don't have a lot of time. If we take yet another month, the longer you wait, the higher the risk is that we'll leave money on the table at the end.
So
To be spent and.
Yeah,
maybe just approach it like that this afternoon. This is the
Right.
plan and we will look for your concurrence.
But I think that we still do want, and Kurt mentioned this, would be in the prioritization, right? So there is still, we still do want feedback, right? And so we're limiting in some ways their ability to provide
So
feedback.
on that last, you're talking about page, the
yeah,
last page,
Yeah, there,
we can
Recommended
certainly
one
get their
time.
input on what do you think we should do with prioritization?
Narrow down
of
that
these.
and okay,
overflow.
that's
yeah,
probably
it
the
is
best.
meaningful because it is very likely we'll need to use that list.
Okay,
just given
well,
the-
that's something that we can let them chew on a little bit. Commissioner Edwards?
So it looks like what the total fund is 2.5 million.
2.645.
And we've got a certain dollar amount left over, 500, about 500,000. Is that right?
Approximately, yeah, correct, yeah.
So that's basically what we're gonna say to those folks. This is what the new folks. Okay, we've already allocated this, we're under a time frame, and we now have a staff recommendation to cover what we're saying is excess.
Correct.
And how that ought to be spent because of the time frame that we're up against. And so we're asking for a concurrence of the Board of Health with staff's recommendation.
Right,
That's
yes.
kind of about it. I mean, I don't know why we have to go through all this minutia and confuse everybody at this point.
Yeah, I don't think we do. I think we wanna make sure they have the information at least, but I agree with you, Commissioner, we shouldn't, with your permission, Chair, like, I don't think we necessarily have to go through the weeds of each line item per se.
And-
Well, I already have questions on like some of the line items, so
On the recommendations by
Um,
staff?
well, no, not the recommendation, I mean, just on the funded initiatives on task one, there's an allocated 58,000, like, I would like to know, like, okay, like, why is that unallocated, like, and I don't wanna get into it now, because, you know, we have other things, but for me, it's, I do have questions
Yeah,
about that, and I would like an answer
if it
about
doesn't
it.
explain what the
Right.
58,000 is
And
for,
so-
we need to know.
It is important to remember that everything on that page that is at the top of what Commissioner's looking at, yeah, Commissioner Mitzer has, I don't have the documents now or I'd flash it at you. There you go, thank you. Everything on that page has already been approved in your budget for those specific items. So you don't, yes, you absolutely need an answer for what is this, but I would recommend that you not spend a lot of time on that page, because those are the things you've already
It's
approved,
just
that
background
they should
summary on
already
where
be
we've
working
already-
on.
Right. In fact, we're, again, hiring, the positions are being advertised, we're going forward in NeoGov and everything, but for what's already been approved by the Board of County Commissioners as
Right,
of
so
December.
those things are in progress, it's the page that you're looking at now that we are saying, hey, could you please say yes to these things so we can get them going and spend all the money we can on these things. And then I think this whole thing comes with an assurance to the Board of Health that conversations in February, should you put this on your agenda, need to include, here's the overall Department of Health budget and where the whole thing goes, so that the new members can start to get their heads around that. And start to have the conversations about how do you wanna spend your next
Next
12 months of foundational public health money.
Maybe Commissioner Messer, you can probably frame the expectations when you introduce this item. At a high level, brief background, but really concentrating on the proposals by staff and get the concurrence of the Board of Health. Because I think that would probably be the best if I may.
I really wanted something, like pop-ups or noxious weeds that people could understand a little better before we had to do this, but it just didn't
And
timing wise.
I agree with you, Commissioner, the idea seemed really good. 2020 is always hindsight, good hindsight, but hindsight's always 2020, I guess. Back in July, it seemed like a great concept with the Board of Health starting earlier, and with, I mean, it was just all, the best laid plans are,
Okay,
go
well, we'll
right.
do the best we can, and
And I will be honest, I will be the first one to say, staff looked at me like I was crazy in July, and I thought this works for EMS Council, but I forgot EMS Council had a process that's been in place for years, and we're creating the process here.
Okay, so, it's 10:46, I wanna go ahead and cover the, meeting for January 17th. There's only 2 items on there, there shouldn't be many questions on it. So for our Tuesday, January 17th meeting, we would call the meeting to order at 2 p.m. The Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Commissioner Edwards, and then the approval of the Tuesday, January 17th agenda. There's an opportunity for the public to address the board and county manager's update.
And I will
Anything-
follow up next week on the public testimony before you this afternoon on the Board of County Commissioners.
Okay, any questions on that? Okay, moving on to department items. The first one, item 3A from Community Planning and Economic Development, is the 2023 Heritage Grant Program.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. Last week, you got a briefing related to the proposed grants on the Heritage Grant Program that you have. And it's a total cost of $37,261.90. There is a list of potential grant recipients, and this is just for you to confirm what you discussed last week. As you may recall, there was no changes on the staff's proposal related to this grants.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions.
Questions, Commissioner Mensah? Okay, no questions for me, Jeremy, thank you. Moving on to emergency services, item 4A, Medic One agreement with the City of Olympia for fire department vehicle repair and maintenance services.
Yeah, thank you. This is a reoccurring agreement that we have with the City of Olympia where they provide maintenance and repair services to Thurston County Medic One paramedic units. That's normal that we have. We don't have the equipment nor the skill and expertise to maintain those vehicles. And there's a local agreement with the City of Olympia and where we have specifically state reimbursement basis on a fee base. Depending on the maintenance they provide on the equipment that Medic One owns and is part of the stock.
Thank you. Okay, questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Mensah? No questions from me. That will conclude our agenda. Thank you, Ben. That will conclude our agenda for the week of January 17th. Let's go ahead and take a 10 to 15-minute break, and then we'll be right back.
Thank you.
I found this on the web.
All right. Okay, we are back on we are back live. We are not on break. We just came back from break. It is 11:08 a.m. We'll go ahead and get started with our next item on our agenda, which are proclamations and awards and advisory boards and commissions. And I'll pass it to Jamie Caldwell, clerk of the board.
Good morning. For proclamations, I have no updates outside of what's already been discussed. For boards and commissions, the standing applications for the Agricultural Advisory Committee have been included. I did receive an application for the person the committee was trying to recruit, along with a couple others during the break at the end of December. The committee is recommending appointment of Stella Waxing. I also received appointment requests for the Civil Service Commission, Hotel Motel Commission, and the Pest and Vegetation Management Advisory Committee. There was one reappointment request received for the Area Agency on Aging, and all are recommending appointment or reappointment as requested. Black Lake Special District sent an appointment request as well. A board member is moving, and they're requesting an appointment to fill her position until the next general election in 2024.
I have just because of timing, I have a recommendation for the board to, we have received a lot of new applications, to review those applications, and then we can have a more at-length discussion next week. Does that work?
Sure.
Unless commissioners have a burning question they need to ask now.
How many are we gonna pick here for the Ag Advisory Committee?
There's only one non-farmer opening right now.
And the Ag Committee has made a recommendation for that slot.
Yes, yeah, Stella Waxing. That was the individual
Stella
that.
Waxing.
That was the individual they were trying to recruit when they asked you to give them some additional time on the other two that had currently turned in applications.
So, yeah, so we can go ahead and review, because we received 3 new applications for that committee. We can go ahead and review and then have a discussion on whether we're gonna,
That'll be next week?
yeah, follow the recommendation or,
Okay.
and then review the rest of the applications. County Manager, did you have a?
Yeah, for the appointment on the Area Agency on Aging, that's a reappointment.
Okay.
Will you consider moving that?
Angela Hawk?
Yeah.
Is that okay with?
What's this one again?
For
The
Area Agency
Agency
on
on
Aging,
Aging.
Angela
Angela
Hawk,
Hawk.
reappointment.
How do you feel on that?
There's no applicants and it's just
It's right here in the,
She does animal control, doesn't she?
no, she does, Area Agency on Aging.
Yeah, but is she also?
No, that's Sarah
Sarah,
Hawk.
Sarah, I think,
Okay.
yeah, same last name.
Okay.
can't find it.
So, yeah, let's go ahead and just wait.
I just
That
not,
way,
I haven't had a chance to see it.
just so we can all review.
Yep, okay.
Okay, so with that, we'll move on to PIO check-in.
Megan is sick today, so.
Okay. Legislative update.
Yeah, next week I will start bringing the report for you with some bills that may be a matter of the county and provide with a perspective for you to take a position. And I understand there is a lot of information in each of the bills. I was trying to be as expeditious as possible because sometimes the position that the board may need to take is timely. So I will try to do my best and as I have in the past few years. But the request that I have for you today, something that just came up in the last couple of weeks, is the opportunity for us to submit a capital request to the legislature to help us fund the elections building. As you know, we have a gap in funding to build, improve one of the buildings on the Mudman complex that we just purchased last year. And really is building one, as we call it, for the elections building. And the capital request is for $3 million. I have already started working with Deborah Manguia, and we have already engaged Senator Hunt yesterday with Commissioner Menser, and he's willing to sponsor this particular request. The request that I have for you is to amend the legislative agenda that you have to add that request. And so we have something consistent.
Questions, Commissioner?
I'm good.
add and like squeeze it in and 9-point font or take one of them out? Or-
No, what I will do is reduce the the description on the art park and add a short description on that. So that will be it.
Okay, thumbs up
Thank
for
you.
me. Could I also get once that is added, could I get a copy of that,
Yes,
please?
I will send you a final version.
Perfect. Briefing, public hearing decisions pending, there's nothing. Now commissioner items, we have quite a few of them. The first item is climate mitigation, and Rebecca Harvey is going to be presenting on this.
I'm gonna share my screen.
Good morning, commissioners. I'm so glad to be here with you for the first time, and I just want to thank you for all you've done so far to support the climate mitigation plan and its implementation. Today, on the next slide, I'm presenting on two initiatives. Both are related to solar energy, and both are priority actions in the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan. Under Strategy B5, increase the production of local renewable energy. The first is B5.5 Soul Smart designation, and the second is B5.3 solar on public facilities. These both build upon prior work that the county has done to advance solar energy. As listed here, just a few examples that I've become aware of in the short time that I've been here, from the LEED Gold certified public works campus that has solar, to the permit exemption for small scale solar installations, and most recently the passage of the CPACER ordinance this summer. Next slide introduces the first of the two initiatives that I would like to discuss today for board direction, is Thurston County's potential participation in the Soul Smart designation program. So what is Soul Smart? It is a national technical assistance and designation program funded by the U.S. Department of Energy. There's no cost to communities to participate. It's free technical assistance provided. And the program recognizes cities and counties that take steps to address local barriers to solar energy and foster the growth of mature local solar markets. The focus of the program is on reducing the so-called soft costs of solar, which refer to all non-hardware costs, such as planning and zoning, permitting, interconnection and inspection, installation, labor, financing, customer acquisition. So together, these soft costs can represent up to 65% of the total cost of a typical residential solar energy system. The Soul Smart program has certified more than 470 communities nationally, so far 8 communities in Washington, and they tailor the technical assistance to the community. So for example, the application includes 75 different credits that each provide points, and you have to get to a certain point threshold. So any community has multiple pathways towards the certification. And the next slide shows the benefits. Let's add animation. So many benefits to participating in Soul Smart. The first is it increases the return on investment for solar customers by streamlining local regulatory processes to reduce those soft costs. By one study cited here, doing so can cut up to $2,500 off the cost of a solar PV system. The program can also help result in cost savings for county government through these more efficient approval processes. And it can help to grow the local economy by reducing barriers for solar companies. According to Soul Smart, more than a third of solar installation companies say that they avoid serving certain communities because of permitting difficulties. And it also meets the climate goals while providing national recognition to Thurston County. Next slide. Here we have the requirements for each of the levels of Soul Smart designation, from bronze to gold. There's more details on this in the Soul Smart credit overview document that I attached to the packet today. Bronze requires 60 total points, including 20 in each of the 2 foundational categories, which are permitting and inspection and planning and zoning. Bronze requires the completion of 3 initial prereqs. Silver certification would be 100 total points and 3 more prereqs, some staff training and a zoning clarification posted on the website. And gold requires 200 points and 2 more prerequisites. So we can talk more about those levels. From my initial conversations, we would probably be eligible to go for the gold certification. I can pause there if there's specific questions on SoulSmart, or go right into the second initiative and have discussion at the end.
Questions?
Just a quick question to make sure that, okay, so for bronze, it's 3, for silver, it's 6, and for gold, it's 8.
Prereqs, yes, that's right.
Go ahead, Commissioner Munson.
So when it says, so the reducing of soft costs is something that we do by adopting these recommendations. And so looking at bronze, we do something with permitting and inspection. Doesn't really say what that is and whether that costs us money to do that thing. I don't know what that thing is
Yes,
that we have to
exactly.
do.
It's complicated, which is why I didn't
Oh, okay.
attach the 40 paid program guide, but I attached the list to
Oh,
give
right
you
here.
an idea. There's a whole lot of credits that we could choose from.
Oh, we can choose which
We've
of these
already
things.
seen what City of Olympia has done. They've just received gold certification. So since we're, nearby, we can coordinate and align with what they've done. But for example, the prerequisite in the third prerequisite under bronze is a zoning review that the SoulSmart technical assistants do for us at no cost. They just go through all the zoning codes to see if they're favorable towards solar installations, just to flag anything if we have height restrictions or anything like that. That's just the review itself. If we want to then go forward and change those codes, that would be a county choice and, staff time involved for it.
Mhm. And then we get points for doing that.
Yes.
And what do you get when you get in these different categories? You
You
get a
get-
bonus, you get money kickback, you get funding from the state, what do you get?
Recognition.
No, everything is about, but I think is from the county's perspective is, what are the steps that we're gonna be taking to address this very complex issue? And I believe by joining the Solar Smart, program, it gives us what I call is a North Star to work on a certain goal.
Recognition.
Yeah, to get it to a certain goal. And along the way, as Rebecca explained, maybe items the board may take as a legislative authority, actions, code or not. But I think it gave us the opportunity to get into this new environment, to start working towards a goal to resolve this issue. So along the way, what is the value added? The value added, I believe my humble perspective is to take actions to address climate.
So it's really more about total climate benefit rather than any specific solar
Monetary, yeah.
installations.
You're absolutely.
So what I've been advocating for quite some time is the e-inspection process, for an example. That will reduce carbon credit by
Exactly,
cars
we will
running around.
bring this
That's a
because that's a strategy that can help us achieve.
But we aren't
Benefits.
there yet. I mean, I know we've implemented something, we're just not there yet. We're not far enough along yet.
Well,
We're getting
40% there, Commissioner.
Okay,
We'll be there.
but that's what
be
we'll
there.
get credit for.
There's numerous actions within this program. It's very comprehensive. And so we could get credit specifically for, did you say free inspection? Is that what? you have?
No,
E-inspection.
e-inspection, so that
Yes.
we inspect by phone. So the
Yeah,
contractor can send a
Video or picture rather than having an inspector have to go out and get around.
drive, we can do 10 inspections in a day instead of 2 or 3.
That all goes under the overall goals of this program to streamline the process.
Okay, so that should give us incentive to hurry up.
Yes, I think we are incentivized to hurry up in so many different ways on that one. believe me.
Okay, good enough. Thank you.
Okay.
Any additional questions?
So so Olympia's gold, we're looking at doing this. Is Lacey and Tumwater also? looking
Tumwater
at-
is in the process as well. I'm not sure about Lacey.
Thanks.
Why would you not want to do it? I guess that's what my question would be.
A good question. I think is something that we
Okay, just one.
Should-
I thought maybe there was downside I don't know about.
Okay, I do have a next step slide at the end for direction on both initiatives, but we can come back to that. But briefly, I'll go over the second proposed initiative, which relates to action 5.3, B 5.3 in the climate mitigation plan, solar on public facilities. I know this is a topic that the board has discussed in various ways in the past. Today, I would like to discuss a specific proposal to install solar panels on Thurston County's closed landfill, which presents an opportunity to use otherwise undevelopable land for production of clean energy. And this is a standalone proposal for a specific project. So
I'm hoping that we're gonna get some federal assistance out of that $1.7 billion or whatever they just put out, you know, that is gonna say, hey, if you wanna do this, here's a grant 50-50. I'd rather have 100% grant.
So you will hear this particular proposal, we're not asking the board to participate financially, because PSE is the one who has approached the county to see if there is an opportunity for us to lease portions of the landfill for them to put a solar panels to generate energy. That's really is more, I think, in terms of a pilot project in partnership with PSE, because the only commitment with, and we need to work through the details, and we're not here to provide the
I guess
details.
from the perspective of efficiency, doesn't PSE have windmills over by Ellensburg?
Yeah, I think they quite a bit.
I mean, and I think of, I mean, not that I'm opposed to doing it here, because you can't use the land for anything else, but is it financially feasible to put it here where it's cloudy half the time versus?
Well, no, there's
Ellensburg,
solar
where the sun's shining
panels,
all
there
the
are
time.
solar panels here in Western Washington.
Yeah,
They are.
but they're just not as productive as one across the mountains, I suppose.
yeah. I can tell you a little bit about this specific proposal, but what I understand, because the cost of solar technology has come down so much, I was surprised too, coming from Florida, and I looked at my rooftop here versus Florida, and the production of my rooftop here was like 75% of what it would have in Florida. Like even when it's cloudy, the solar panels are still generating.
You can get a southern exposure.
And the cost has come down so much that it does make sense in Washington. So this particular proposal for a potential partnership, the county was approached by a private developer, EDF Renewables, who informed us that PSE, Puget Sound Energy, has put out an RFP for distributed solar and battery storage. Distributed solar just means smaller scale power systems that are connected to the electric grid. And this would be part of their clean energy implementation plan to meet the state targets. EDF Renewables approached us looking for public land to lease for 25 or more years for the purpose of building a solar plus battery storage project for PSE. And so they're looking for 20 to 75 acre parcels up to about 10 megawatt solar systems. Land that is near PSE owned substation and distribution power lines. So on the next slide, I've spoken at length with Jeff Bickford, the solid waste manager in the Public Works Department, as well as Jennifer Walker and their team to assess the potential to use the county's closed landfill at the Waste and Recovery Center as a potential host site for this project. I identified the landfill as a priority location because there's a growing national movement to use that land, brownfield sites and former landfills for solar development. These lands generally have great sun exposure and limited other redevelopment opportunities. The solar is built, I won't go into the weeds, but it's built on concrete platforms, ballasted, weighted, so there's no penetration or very little penetration into the landfill, so it doesn't disrupt, the monitoring that we have to do for EPA over the coming years.
Or the settling or what?
Or the settling.
So that's great to hear, because that was the barrier when we looked at this about 9 years ago.
With solar on the landfill?
Yeah, because
Okay.
the technology has changed, because
Yes.
the old technology, it dry piles, which breaks the membrane,
Right.
it covers the landfill.
Yeah.
Which this is a little bit water footage, surface level, allows for
That's
that.
I
excellent.
think the industry has advanced quite a lot, and these projects are becoming very common. We can see a lot of examples of them. So Jeff and his team identified an area of about 20 to 25 acres of open grassy land on the old landfill. And the preliminary estimate from the developer is that the system would generate about 2.5 megawatts AC, not 5 as it says. That was an earlier estimate. So about 2.5 megawatts, which I looked at EPA's calculator, could reduce about 2,700 metric tons of carbon emissions in a year and power more than 300 homes each year.
And when you say the power, the production amount, the kilowatts, is that in a day, in a month, in a year?
So the megawatt, 2.5 megawatt system, that's just the overall system capacity, which this system would estimate about 3,800 megawatt hours per year. So
Which still doesn't mean anything to me.
3 million kilowatt hours per year, which, looking up the average
Are they figuring
household.
that 30% of the time it's producing maximum, or? I'm just trying to figure out what's the efficiency issue here?
I could look into that specifically.
It's kind of like the wind doesn't blow all the
Yes,
time
well,
either, but when it
exactly.
does, it's producing.
The reason for this RFP that PSC is doing is to make the grid more efficient by adding the battery storage. So this proposed project would have the solar panels plus some battery storage that would back up the grid during the times when the sun isn't shining. So that's what they're working towards, is to make the overall grid more efficient and reliable.
Well, what about leaving like the county fairgrounds or the county shop building or something like that? I mean, don't we have a lot of other areas that?
Yeah, a good question, but I think baby steps. I think this is a good.
Okay, I'm always in a
step.
hurry.
There's a good first step. I think we need to, if the board is okay with this concept, then the direction will be to further explore the details of a contract, lease, what is the usage, megabytes, or whatever that is. I think this right now is introducing the concept for you to consider. And along the way, if this becomes successful, then we can see what other options the county has. But really, it's concept at this point.
Absolutely, Commissioner. There may be plenty of other lands in the county. I'm very new here, so I just started with what I know previously about landfills and saw we had a closed landfill, so jumped into that as a suggestion. But we could look at other sites as well. And an important point to add is that this would provide revenue to the county. There would be lease payments estimated about $1,200 per acre per year. So this being a 20 to 25 acre site could be 24,000 to 35,000 each year for a 25-year lease, which could be extended for 5 or 15 years on top of that. So there would be some revenue. Yes.
Would the revenue need to be deposited into the solid waste fund?
Tip and fee, yeah.
We've already got so much money there we can't use.
I can help it.
Let's talk about it. I think
Yeah,
right now.
We gotta be innovative and try and figure out a way around that.
Well, I will be. Yeah, let's try.
So,
Stretch it a little bit.
Rebecca, why don't you expedite the rest of the slides? We have other items to cover
This
today.
is my last slide.
Okay.
Yes, so just benefits, again, some of these overlap with the solar benefits of the other initiative, but again, the revenue, and repurposing vacant land that has limited development potential, and there could be some minimal, economic benefits with temporary construction jobs, local contracting for the project, which would take about a year to 18 months, to construct when you include the permitting time. And that's all I have. And the potential next steps would be if we receive board direction to move forward with SolSmart, the first step would be to complete the first prerequisite, which is the solar statement, and I attached a draft. It's just a letter confirming the county's commitment to meet these goals or seek the designation of SolSmart. And then I would be the lead on the project and work with CPED and other departments to go through the application, aligning with cities of Olympia and Tumwater as much as possible,
to make it efficient. And then for the PSE distributed solar project, we're just asking for direction to explore this partnership opportunity and a potential lease agreement with EDF Renewables, PSE.
Questions? I'm good on both proposals, I think. Thank you, Rebecca, I think, yeah. That's great, yeah.
All right, so you have direction on both. So let's touch base after this.
All right, I'll
Thank
dig
you.
right in. Thank you so much.
Okay, next, our favorite topic, decaying trees on taxable properties.
You should be a comedian.
Can we keep talking about solar energy?
I like that subject better, to be honest with you. Okay, let me stop sharing my screen. Okay, Jason.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jason Ash, Facilities
Make it
Manager.
brief because there's still 2 executive sessions left.
Okay, this is quick. So we have another one of your favorite subjects, the decaying trees on Greendale Court. Jamie's attached the arborist report, and we got a cost estimate. The low cost estimate we got to remove this tree was $3,500. It is in danger of falling on a neighboring house. I have reached out to a adjacent landowner, and I will be hooking them up with the treasurer's office. They're interested in purchasing the land if and once the tree is removed.
Sure.
Of course.
Sure.
So I will add just one quick note. The last approval we did for, I believe it was like $42,000 for those 13 poplar trees. The contractor, it went a lot better than he expected, and he billed us, I believe it was $34,000. So we came in approximately $8,000 under what he had
That will
planned.
give you
cover
a little
this.
capacity to
Oh,
consider this request.
Yes.
Okay, questions?
As we're looking at these properties, sounds like this one, you maybe have a potential sale, good. But as this comes up, at the same time, we have to take down what's called a problem tree because it's dying, it's dead, it's leaning, whatever it is. At the same time, could you just look at other nearby trees or on the same property so we don't have to come out again?
Well, I think the discussion that we have had with the board in the past, we're trying not to be proactive in assessing because it will be extremely expensive for us to go through this process.
There's one right next to it that looks like it might be
and I
coming
think it's
too, why not?
on a case-by-case basis, when we receive a specific request of a decaying trees where we bring these items to you. We don't have a program to be proactive.
Well, Jason knows trees enough, he can tell if they're dying or not. Give him some leeway to fix the problem before it comes to us.
So.
Okay, never mind.
So
Sorry about
we're
that.
asking the board if okay to move forward with this particular tree.
Like, we don't have, I mean.
Yes, we gotta take them.
Okay, well, hopefully we can tack on this price tag onto the final sale, but that's always and hopefully they'll go for it, but.
So you're ready to go, Jason, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, so with that, we'll go ahead and go into executive session. Combined, these executive sessions should take 30 minutes. The first one is per RCW 4230, 110, subsection 1I, to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency litigation or potential litigation to which the agency, the governing body, or a member acting in official capacity is or is likely to become a party when public knowledge regarding the discussion is likely to result in an adverse legal or financial consequence to the agency. Habza Home Builders Inc. versus Thurston County. The next executive session is RCW 42.30.110, subsection 1I, to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency litigation or potential litigation to which the agency, the governing body, or member acting in official capacity is or is likely to become a party when public knowledge regarding the discussion is likely to result in an adverse legal or financial consequence to the agency. West versus Thurston County. Commissioners' action may follow on these two executive sessions. So with that, it is 11:38. Executive session per RCW 42.30.110, subsection 1I, to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency litigation or potential litigation to which the agency, the governing body, or a member acting in official capacity is or is likely to become a party when public knowledge regarding the discussion is likely to result in an adverse legal or financial consequence to the agency. COPSA Home Builders Incorporated versus Thurston County. No commissioner's action follows that executive session. The next executive session was per RCW 42.30.110, subsection 1I, to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency litigation or potential litigation to which the agency, the governing body, or a member acting in official capacity is or is likely to become a party when public knowledge regarding the discussion is likely to result in an adverse legal or financial consequence to the agency. West versus Thurston County. No commissioner's actions follow that. So with that, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.